If you feel insignificant, you better think again. Better wake up because you're part of something way bigger. You're part of something way bigger. Not just a speck in the universe, not just some words in the Bible verse, but you are the living word. You're part of something way bigger. You're part of something way bigger.
And God stepped out on space. And he looked around and said, I'm lonely, I'll make me a world. And as far as the eye of God could see, darkness covered everything. Blacker than 100 midnights down in the cypress swamp, and then God smiled and the light broke and the darkness rolled up on one side and the light stood shining in the other, and God said, that's good. Then God took the light into his hands and he rolled the light around in his hands until he made the sun, and he set the sun ablazing in the heavens. And the light that was left from making the sun, God gathered up into a shining ball and flung it against the darkness, spangling the night with the moon and the stars. Then down between the darkness and the light, God hurled the world, and he said, that's good. Then God himself stepped down. The sun was on his right hand, the moon was on his left, the stars were clustered above his head, and the earth was under his feet, and he began to walk, and where he trod, his footsteps hollowed valleys out and bulged mountains up. And then God stopped, and he looked, and he saw that the earth was hot and barren. So he stepped over to the edge of the world, and he spat out the 7 seas. He batted his eyes, and lightning flashed. He clapped his hands, and thunders rolled, and the waters of the earth came down. The cooling waters of the earth came down. The green grass sprouted. The little red flower blossomed. The pine tree pointed its finger to the sky. The oak tree spread out its arms. The lakes cuddled down in the hollows of the ground. The rivers ran down to the sea. And then God smiled again. And a rainbow appeared and curled itself around God's shoulder. And God waved his arm and waved his hand over the sea and over the land. And quicker than God could drop his hands, fish and fowls and beasts and birds swam the rivers and the seas, roamed the forests and the woods, split the air with their wings. And God began to walk around and look on all he made. He looked at his sun. He looked at his moon. He looked at his little stars. He looked at his world with all its living things, and he said to himself, I'm lonely still. So he sat down on the side of a hill where he could think. By a deep, wide river knelt he down, and with his hand to his head, he thought, and he thought, till he thought, I'll make me a man. And up from the bed of the river, God scooped the clay, and there the great God Almighty, who lit the sun and fixed it in the sky, who flung the stars into the most far corner of the night, who rounded the earth in the middle of his hands, this same God, like a mammy bending over her baby, toiling in a lump of clay until he shaped it into his image. And into it he blew the breath of life. And man became a living soul, and I became a living soul. If you feel insignificant, you better think again. Better wake up because you're part of something way bigger. You'll never lose, we are winners.
Bigger than you, bigger than we, bigger than the picture they framed us to see, but now we see it. Oh, you're part of something way bigger.